ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavata Pravaha online sessions on the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the last 3 episodes, we have covered the 17 chapters of 9th canto, and today we will cover from the 18th chapter till the 24th chapter and complete the 9th canto in this last and 4th episode of the 9th canto. And from the next session onwards, we will begin the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the previous episode, we have seen the stories of Parashuram and Pururava. So we began our discussion on the moon dynasty, and the moon god has a son named Buddha, and Buddha's son was Pururava, and Pururava associated with Urvasi, and he received 6 sons. You can see in the chart where Pururava's 6 sons are mentioned. So Pururava and Urvasi had 6 sons. They are Ayu, Shrutayu, Satyayu, Raya, Vijaya and Jaya. And yesterday we have completed the lineage of Vijaya. So in the lineage of Vijaya there were several great kings, and Gadhi is one of the prominent king, and Gadhi's daughter was Satyavati, and Satyavati married a sage named Ruchika, and their son was Jamadagni, and Jamadagni's son was Parashuram. And yesterday we have discussed the pastimes of Parashuram in great detail. And we have also seen the descendants of Gadhi's son, that is Vishwamitra and his 101 sons, and Sunashrepa also. So Vijaya's lineage is completed. Now we will discuss about Ayu's lineage. So Ayu has 5 sons. They are Nahusha, Kshatravruddha, Raji, Rabha and Anena. So we discussed about Raji yesterday, and we also very briefly described about Nahusha. So when Indra performed his offense towards our Vritrasur, so the sinful reaction in the form of a old woman affected by tuberculosis chased Indra. So Indra ran away and took shelter of Manas Sarovar, and he entered within a lotus stem and stayed there for 1,000 years as a result of his sinful reaction. Then at that time, in the absence of Indra, Nahusha was called to sit on the throne of heavenly planets and rule on behalf of Indra. So Nahusha occupied the post of Indra circumstantially. But Nahusha, out of his pride, he also demanded that Indra's wife should become his wife. So when he made this unusual proposal towards Indra's wife told him that you can come to me on a palanquin carried by the great sages, then I will accept you. So the Nahusha engaged the great sages, great Brahmanas, to carry his palanquin, and he was very rude while they were carrying palanquin also. So Nahusha was cursed by the sages to become a python. He fell down from his position. So when somebody is very lusty and proud of his material position, then one will have to fall down. Sooner or later he will have to fall down from his position, and especially if one offends Brahmanas out of one's false pride, so they are just inviting their own ruination. We can see this in Nahusha's example. And Nahusha had a son named Yayati. And today we will discuss the episode of Yayati and Devayani, and after that we will also discuss the episodes of Dushmanta in this lineage, and also Rantidev, and we will conclude our discussion today with a prelude given by Sukadeva Goswami to the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So first we will begin with the story of Yayati. Nahusha's son was Yayati, and in this connection we have to discuss about the daughter of Shukracharya, Devayani, who would become the wife of Yayati. So Devayani was the daughter of Shukracharya, and Shukracharya was the guru of the demons. And Devayani had a friend named Sharmishta, and Sharmishta was the daughter of the king of demons. His name was Vrishaparva. So Vrishaparva's daughter Sharmishta and Shukracharya's daughter Devayani. So they both, along with so many other friends, so all these girls went to a garden and they found a beautiful water reservoir and they wanted to take bath. So they left their clothing on the bank of that water, bank of that lake, and they entered the lake to take bath. At that time, Lord Shiva has come there. He was passing by on his great bull carrier. Then all these girls, they felt very ashamed and they felt so shy to take bath in that water lake when Shiva was passing by. They hastily came out of that lake and then they started covering their bodies with their clothes. And by mistake, Sharmishta took the clothes of Devayani. And Devayani became extremely angry at Sharmishta's mistake. So Sharmishta was an innocent girl, but Sharmishta is very angry also. And Devayani also became very angry when Sharmishta has taken her clothes. So Devayani told Sharmishta that you are Kshatriyas. So you are coming from a Kshatriya dynasty and we are Brahmanas. And Brahmanas are superior to Kshatriyas. So your father will come and offer obeisances to my father. So only because of the blessings of my father, your father is flourishing. Only Brahmanas have the ability to educate and empower the Kshatriyas and to accomplish so many things. So you people are very inferior to us, and how can you accept my clothes? You are contaminating my clothes. So Devayani, out of her pride in being a Brahmana girl, so she insulted Sharmishta in this way for a simple mistake that Sharmishta has done. She has just took the clothes of Devayani, that too by mistake, not intentionally. Then when Devayani rebuked Sharmishta like this, Sharmishta also was very angry and she told Devayani, so your father Shukracharya begs money from my father Vrishaparva. So unless we kings, Kshatriyas, maintain you Brahmanas, you will have to live a life by begging. So you won't be able to maintain yourself unless we feed you. So these two girls, they have made a small conflict that has happened between themselves into a comparison between the Kshatriya community and Brahmana community. They have become self-appointed representatives of these two communities, and they are presenting a sense of superiority over each other in this context. So far they were friends. Before entering the lake, they were friends, and after after coming out of the lake, they have become enemies. They have become lifelong enemies. So Sharmishta became extremely angry at Devayani's words, and she also spoke with great pride and anger. And Sharmishta did not stop there. Sharmishta took away the clothes of Devayani and threw Devayani into a well. And she left. She went home. So Devayani was lying naked inside the well. So at that time, Yayati happened to pass by, and Devayani was lying there without clothes there inside the well. So sometimes our ego clashes could lead to a very serious conflicts, and that conflict will not remain within two personalities only. It could become a bigger conflict between two communities also. Yesterday we have seen the example of moon god. So the moon god Soma has kidnapped the wife of Brahaspati named Tara, and that's a conflict between Brahaspati and moon god because of one woman Tara. But eventually there was a big fight between the demigods and the demons, Shukracharya and Brahaspati, because of this one conflict between these two people. So one should not unnecessarily exhibit so much of anger for small reasons. So here is Devayani and Sharmishta. They became angry and they became lifelong enemies just because their clothes got exchanged. And so far they were friendly towards each other, and suddenly their friendship became enmity because within they were maintaining an attitude or a sense of superiority over each other. Devayani was thinking that Sharmishta is inferior to me because we are Brahmanas and she is Kshatriya girl, and my father blesses her father, so we are better. And Sharmishta was thinking that my father is maintaining her father. So we are Kshatriyas and we are maintaining Brahmanas, and she has that identity. And they became self-appointed representatives of Brahmana community and Kshatriya community, and they are artificially trying to compare their dynasties and their communities and their castes. And then Sharmishta, out of anger, just threw Devayani into this well. And Yayati happened to pass by, and he noticed that some woman is crying there, and she is helpless. And then Yayati came and saw into the dark well, and he could see Devayani there lying naked. Immediately this Yayati took out his upper cloth and then gave to Devayani to cover her body, and he also pulled that Devayani out of that well. And when Devayani was being pulled out of Yayati, Yayati had to touch the hand of Devayani, and Devayani, as soon as she came out of the well, she requested Yayati, "My dear king, you have touched my hand, you have accepted my hand, let me not be touched by anyone else, please accept me as your wife." So Devayani requested Yayati like this. And Yayati was not so favorable to this proposal, because a Brahmana boy can marry a Kshatriya girl, just like Kardama Muni married Devahuti. Kardama was a Brahmana and Devahuti was a Kshatriya girl. So that is called Anuloma marriage. So a person from a boy from a superior caste can marry a woman from a lesser caste. But here Devayani is coming from Brahmana caste, and Yayati was a Kshatriya. So how can this marriage happen? This is like a Pratiloma marriage. But still, Yayati was attracted by the beauty of Devayani, and so he had to accept this proposal. And then after this incident, this Devayani came back to her father, Shukracharya, and then told her father and whatever has happened at the lake. Then Shukracharya became extremely angry. So he condemned his own situation because he accepted the priesthood of Vrishaparva, this king of the demons, and he felt that I have accepted a condemned profession, and now my daughter was insulted by this, by Sharmishta, the daughter of Vrishaparva. So Shukracharya became offended, and Shukracharya angrily wanted to just give some punishment to Vrishaparva, and then he was coming towards Vrishaparva's palace. Meanwhile, Vrishaparva also became aware of this incident, and then he started coming towards Shukracharya. He understood that Shukracharya is a very powerful Brahmana, he is the guru of the demons also. If Shukracharya curses me, what would happen to me and what would happen to my dynasty and what would happen to my kingdom? The wrath, the anger of Brahmanas is not good for weak Kshatriyas. Then this Vrishaparva just voluntarily came out of his palace, and then on the way only he went and fell at the feet of Shukracharya and said, "My dear Guru, please forgive me. Please, my daughter has done a mistake out of her innocence or ignorance or anger. So please forgive me, please forgive my daughter. Tell me what am I supposed to do to please you." Then Shukracharya, out of his undue affection for his daughter Devayani, he told Vrishaparva, whatever my daughter desires, you should fulfill. So let Devayani speak what she wants, what will pacify her, then you should fulfill her desire, her demand, whatever it may be. So now Shukracharya, instead of just trying to just pacify Devayani and Sharmishta, this is a dispute that happened, this is a conflict that happened between two immature girls. So instead of keeping that conflict between them only, Shukracharya just told Vrishaparva to go and pacify this girl Devayani. And Devayani had a very unusual demand. Devayani said, "I will marry, and when I get married to Yayati, this Sharmishta has to come as my maid servant for the rest of her life." Then Vrishaparva had to oblige with this request. It's not request, it's a demand. So Vrishaparva was obliged to satisfy, to pacify this Devayani, and Vrishaparva just told Sharmishta, "Now you must go as a maid servant." to Devayani. Then Sharmishta, and eventually Devayani married Vrishaparva. Devayani married Yayati, and Sharmishta was sent as a maid servant with Devayani to Yayati's house. So at the time of marriage, Shukracharya told Yayati, Yayati, you are a Kshatriya and you are young. And this Sharmishta is also a Kshatriya girl. So actually there is a proper match between Sharmishta and Yayati. So Devayani was a Brahmana girl, but Sharmishta was a Kshatriya girl. Because Yayati was a Kshatriya, so Devayani, Sharmishta and Yayati were like a proper match. So Sukracharya understood this. Now along with my daughter, Vrishaparva's daughter is also coming into your house. So now you are not supposed to entertain her. Don't make any relationship with this Sharmishta. So Sukracharya gave a caution, gave a big warning to Yayati, and Yayati heard this warning. And eventually Devayani went to Yayati's house, and Sharmishta also followed Devayani as a maid servant. Now one small conflict, one small ego clash made these two girls into lifelong enemies, and because of Sharmishta's undue anger of just removing the dress of Devayani and then throwing her into well, because of that one mistake, lifelong she had to remain as a maid servant. She was a princess. She could marry a great king and she could become a queen. But because of her one mistake, she became a maid servant to a Brahmana girl. So sometimes our mistakes could lead us to very unpleasant circumstances. So we are inviting our own difficulties in life by become victims of undue anger and pride. So we can see in the lives of Devayani and Sharmishta like this. And later, when Devayani went to Yayati's house, so they got some children. And when Devayani got some sons, Sharmishta also developed a desire to receive some sons. Now she is just a maid servant. Who will give her sons? So once Sharmishta approached Yayati and said, I am also having this desire to have sons, and you are a worthy king, so I am a princess from a great kingdom. So if you agree, you can please bestow the benediction of having some sons to me also. Then Yayati remembered the caution given by Shukracharya. But still, Yayati thought that it is the desire of the providence. Now that a Kshatriya girl, a deserving woman is coming to me with a desire to have sons, how can I deny that desire? So then Yayati also started maintaining a relationship with Sharmishta, and as a result, Sharmishta also received some sons. So through Sharmishta and Devayani, Yayati received 5 sons. Yadu, Puru and other people. So then later Devayani realized that Yayati was maintaining a relationship with Sharmishta also, and Devayani became extremely angry. And Devayani, out of her anger, went back to Sukracharya's house and reported everything what his son-in-law had done. Then Shukracharya became extremely angry with Yayati, and you can see in that picture. So Shukracharya cursed Yayati to become an old man. So Yayati became an old man because of Shukracharya's curse. Shukracharya also gave in to that momentary anger. But if his son-in-law becomes old man, his daughter only will have to suffer. So daughter is young and son-in-law is so old, and out of anger he just told that Yayati has to embrace invalidity, old age. Then Shukracharya realized that he has done some mistake by making his son-in-law into old man. Then Shukracharya told Yayati, my dear Yayati, out of anger I cursed you, so you have become an old man. So I can adjust something in this curse. If you can exchange your old age with another young man, means that young man has to accept your old age and he has to give his youth to you. If that adjustment can be made, you can again become a young man. Then Yayati went to his own sons. Yayati had 5 sons, and he asked all these 5 sons, can you please become, I am still having lot of sensual desires. I still want to enjoy with Devayani. So Yayati went to his own sons requesting for their youth. My dear sons, can any of you give me your youth and accept my old age so that I can enjoy with your mother? So that kind of very unpleasant and very weird proposal that Yayati had put in front of his sons. And Yadu is one of the sons of this Yayati. So Yadu told that, my dear father, I won't be able to give my youth to you for your sense gratification. So Yadu rejected the order of his father. There is a reason why Yadu rejected. So Yadu rejected because Yadu was aware that the Supreme Lord Krishna is going to appear in his dynasty. So Yadu understood that if I give my youth to my father, and if I become an old man, when will my father return my youth back? So the adjustment is that this Yayati will accept the youth of one of his sons and he will enjoy for some time, and after that he will return the youth to the son and then he will become an old man. But Yadu was thinking that why should I do that? If I do that, I will only delay the appearance of the Supreme Lord Krishna. I can't afford to do that. So to make the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna appear in my dynasty is a better and is a more important cause than just facilitating the sense enjoyment of my father. So Yadu rejected for a bona fide reason. And other three sons of Yayati, they rejected because they are not very much aware of this principles of dharma. And another son, he has 5 sons, Yadu rejected, and other 3 sons also rejected. Another son is Puru. So Puru agreed to accept the youth, accept the old age of his father and give that youth to his father. Then Yayati became a young man. So here in this context there is a beautiful shloka that says, Uttamaschintitam kuryat proktakari tu madhyamah adhamo ashraddhaya kuryat akarto charitam pituhu. So Uttamaha chintitam kuryat. Uttama means a good son or a good disciple will understand the mood of his father. So this is about sons. A good son will understand the mood and need of his father, and he will immediately extend himself with a selfless spirit, with a sacrificing spirit, with proper service attitude, and render and fulfill the desire of his father, even before the father expresses the desire. So just understanding the desire of one's father, a son will extend himself. Such a person is called first class son. And a second class son, that is proktakari tu madhyamaha. So madhyama means a second class son will first hear the instruction of his father and then act according to the instruction. So he will execute the instruction. So but the first class son, even before father gives an instruction, he will understand the mood of the father and then execute that desire. Then the third class son is adhamo ashraddhaya kuryat. So adhama means the third class son would execute the instruction of father in a very imperfect manner, ashraddha, without faith, without proper attention. Then akarto charitam pituhu, a person, means a son who does not at all execute the order of father is as good as the urine or stool of father. So he is not considered a good son at all. He is not even third class son, he is like fourth class person. So these are the 4 categories of sons. So the same shloka can be applied in a relationship between guru and disciple. So a disciple understands the mood of his spiritual master, his guru, and performs service for the pleasure of guru. And a second class disciple will execute the instruction of guru, whatever is told to him. And a third class disciple, he will execute the instruction of guru in a very imperfect manner, inattentive manner, in an improper manner. And the fourth class disciple is a disciple who does not at all follow the instructions of guru. So this is a beautiful shloka in this context. So coming back to Yayati story, Puru accepted the old age of his father Yayati and has sacrificed his youth to Yayati. and Yayati became king, and Yayati became very young, and he started enjoying with Devayani. So in this way, Yayati enjoyed for 1,000 years. In this 1,000 years, Yayati was enjoying sense gratification with his wife Devayani, and also he was taking care of the citizens like a very loving father, and he was also worshipping the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. He was conducting so many sacrifices, and he was ruling righteously, perfect king, but sense gratification was also going on. So at the end of 1,000 years, Yayati realized that I am so absorbed in sense gratification along with doing all my duties, but this sense gratification is not giving me happiness. So I am not being satisfied with this sense enjoyment. So then he called his wife Devayani and told her a story, the story of two goats, a he goat and a she goat. So he basically, Yayati told this story to Devayani, and that story is actually Yayati's story only. So he told, my dear Devayani, once there used to be a he goat. So he was wandering in the garden, and then he found a she goat, and he was attracted to that she goat, and she goat was in some trouble, and the he goat protected the she goat from that trouble, and then they both were attracted to each other, and the master of the she goat offered that she goat to the he goat, and the marriage happened between them, and they lived together for a long time. And somehow the he goat maintained a relationship with another she goat, and his wife became upset, and the master of the she goat just punished this he goat, and later he made some adjustment in that punishment, and again they started enjoying. And even after this he goat and she goat enjoyed for a long time, for 1,000 years, still they are not satisfied. So basically my situation is also exactly like that. So then Yayati realized that sense gratification cannot give any satisfaction, and one has to utilize one's human form of life in rendering service to the Lord. So I have wasted a lot of my time in sense gratification for 1,000 years, even by accepting the youth of my own son. So now is the time to give up this sense gratificatory engagement and take complete shelter of the Supreme Lord. And Yayati gave up the sense enjoyment. In this context, there is a beautiful shloka that sense enjoyment, the desire for sense gratification, that lust and the desire for sex is so deep rooted in the heart of every single conditioned soul, practically, to some degree, to a considerable degree, which is small or big. And the senses are so strong that one should not even associate with the opposite gender, even if they are close relatives like mother or daughter or sister also, because the senses are so distracting that one could give in to sense gratificatory propensities even while associating with relatives also in seclusion. So nothing can satisfy a person with uncontrolled senses. So now if the fire is fed with ghee, you are putting oil or ghee in a fire, you are supplying drops of oil to the fire, will the fire get extinguished? The desire for sense enjoyment is blazing like a fire within the heart of a conditioned soul, and if the conditioned soul wants to accept some little enjoyment for that senses by accepting drops of ghee, so will that fire get extinguished? So by pouring some ghee into the fire will glow more, and the appetite of the fire to accept more and more ghee will increase. Similarly, if you think that, oh, I am having some sense gratificatory desire, so let me gratify my senses to some degree, then they will be pacified. No, the senses will demand for more gratification. So by feeding the senses sense gratification, the urge for the senses to gratify, to do sense gratification will increase more and more. Yes, some basic amount of enjoyment is needed for the senses to keep the body fit. So some little food is needed, we need to hear something pleasant, we need to we need to sit in some comfortable places, we need some basic amount of sense objects. But if that sense enjoyment is unrestricted, undue and illicit and illegal, then definitely that kind of sense gratification will cause ruination for one's spiritual life. And now he is realizing that. So nothing can satisfy a person with uncontrolled senses. So controlling senses by fulfilling lusty desires is like feeding the fire with butter. So one should not think that, okay, let me just address the needs of my senses and the senses will be pacified. Not necessarily. So one will desire more and more sense gratification by receiving amounts of sense gratification periodically. So then Yayati realized all this, and he also felt that a materialistic person, because of sense gratification, will not be able to give up that sense gratification even if he becomes old and invalid also. So one should try to restrain the senses from undue and unfavorable and forbidden sense gratification at least. So senses are very powerful. Even the wise people and learned people also can get bewildered. In the 5th canto, there is a beautiful shloka. Vadanti vishvam kavayasvanashwaram pashyanti chadhyatma vido vipaschitah tathapi muhyanti tava ajamayaya suvismitam krutyamajam natosmitam. Vadanti vishvam kavayasvanashwaram. There are very exalted souls and very learned people, great preachers also. They could also get bewildered by the Maya of the Lord. They are so expert in understanding the nature of this material world, and they can even convince other people about the temporary nature of this material realm, but still they themselves could just get succumb to this sense gratification because Maya is very powerful. Tathapi muhyanti tava aja mayaya. Maya of the Lord is so powerful that it can even bewilder and confuse and captivate and control even exalted souls, learned souls also. Then suvismitam krutyamajam natosmitam. Suvismitam means one will be thoroughly bewildered by Maya despite being so learned. So if learned people, advanced people, exalted souls also are undergoing this kind of experiences, what to speak of a average conditioned soul. That's the message that we need to take from Yayati's episode, then Pururava's episode, Sobhari's episode, and many other episodes in Srimad Bhagavatam, who just gave into lust. Even Soma's episode also that we discussed yesterday. So after enjoying sense gratification for 1,000 years, still the senses are not satisfied. Basically, sense enjoyment will not satisfy us. So sense gratification will not give satisfaction. Only controlling the senses and engaging those senses in some positive work in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord will completely satisfy the senses. Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam. Hrishika means senses. Hrishikesha means the Lord of senses, that is Krishna. If we engage the senses in the master of senses, Krishna, then the senses are satisfied. If we engage the senses in sense gratification, that too in an unrestricted and forbidden manner, then one will only derive dissatisfaction of the senses and one will not be happy in this world. So therefore I shall give up everything. I shall give up this whole sense gratificatory process and I will meditate on the Supreme Lord. Yayati is saying like this. That's why we are discussing Yayati's story. Although Yayati at one point became a victim of lust, he even shamelessly requested his own son to give his youth to him so that he can enjoy sense gratification with that son's mother. So to that degree one can just give in to this urge of lust. So Shaknoti haiva yashodham prakshari ravimokshana kama krodhod bhavam vegam sayuktah sasuki naraha. Means the urges for lust and anger continue to exist as long as we live in this material body. So a sober person should learn to tolerate those urges. So when they will not just go away, they are there as long as material body is there and we are living in this material world. One should learn to tolerate them, and that power to tolerate will come by practicing bhakti yoga in the association of devotees. So So Yayati realized his mistake and he was disgusted and frustrated with sense enjoyment, just as Pururava did. Yesterday we discussed. So then Yayati accepted Vanaprastha, and when Yayati shared all his realizations with his wife Devayani, and Devayani also realized her mistake, and then she also agreed to take to shelter of the Supreme Lord Krishna, and they understood that this material happiness is so temporary and so useless, and Yayati returned his youth to Puru. So in those days people used to live thousands of years. So even after thousand years also, Yayati was young and he has given that youth to Puru, and he has accepted the old age, and Puru continued the dynasty, and Yayati then enthroned Puru as an emperor, because Puru has sacrificed, selflessly he has sacrificed his youth for the enjoyment of his father, being an obedient son. So Puru became very dear son of Yayati, and Yayati has given entire kingdom to Puru. He made him the emperor, and he made the other four sons rule on the other sides, four sides. And later he took self-realization very seriously. Within his mind he always worshipped Lord Vasudeva, and Devayani followed him, and Yayati eventually realized the Supreme Lord and he attained perfection. So Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedhase Sarvabhutadhivasaya Shantaya Brihate Namaha. So a very beautiful prayer is offered to the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. So Yayati has taken shelter of Vasudeva and offered him prayers and perfected his life. So that completes the story of Yayati in these two chapters 18 and 19. Now we will discuss the dynasty of Puru. Puru was the son of Yayati. So in the lineage of Puru there were so many kings, and one of the kings was named Dushmanta. So this Dushmanta was a very powerful king, and once he was wandering in the forest and he saw a very beautiful woman named Shakuntala. Then Dushmanta asked, Shakuntala, where do you live? So Shakuntala was actually living in a hermitage of a great sage named Kanva. So she was being raised under the protection of Kanva Rishi, but Dushmanta understood that you must be the daughter of a Kshatriya girl, because I am spontaneously attracted to you. A Kshatriya man generally would not be attracted to a Brahmana girl, because Brahmanas are considered worshipable. So then this Dushmanta, he was attracted to Shakuntala, and then he was thinking that my mind cannot be thinking in an adharmic way. So when I am getting attracted to you, definitely you must be a Kshatriya girl. Then she told that I am actually the daughter of Menaka and Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was born as a Kshatriya, and he was the son of Gadhi, we discussed yesterday. So Vishwamitra was born as a Kshatriya, but later he became a Brahmana, and he associated with Menaka under one circumstance, and then this Shakuntala was born, and that Shakuntala was being raised by Kanva Muni, because Vishwamitra did not take charge of Shakuntala, and even Menaka also did not take charge of Shakuntala, and Kanva Muni started raising this Shakuntala. Then Dushmanta said that, okay, now I understood your background. So then the Shakuntala invited Dushmanta and gave him all hospitality, and then said that, what can I do for you? How can I serve you? You have come as a guest to our place. And Dushmanta said, I want to marry you in Gandharva style. So Gandharva style is when the Kshatriya is attracted to a woman, he could spontaneously just marry her in Gandharva style out of the consent between the boy and girl only. So then Dushmanta married Shakuntala, and he spent some time with her, and then Dushmanta also impregnated her, and a powerful son named Bharata was born to Shakuntala. So after associating with Shakuntala for a while, Dushmanta went back to his kingdom, and after the child was born, Bharata was born, then Bharata became extremely powerful, and he would even capture a lion, control the lion, and start playing with that lion as a small child. So when the child grew a little bit, then Kanva Muni saw that Shakuntala and her child were there. So Then he had sent Shakuntala. Shakuntala came along with the boy to Dushmanta's kingdom. And Dushmanta said, "Who are you? I don't know you." Then immediately when Akashavani, an unembodied voice, started speaking to Dushmanta, "Dushmanta, why are you rejecting your wife? She is your wedded wife and that boy is your son. So accept, respect her, don't insult her." Then Dushmanta accepted Shakuntala back in his loving company, and then eventually when Dushmanta retired from his kingdom, then Bharata accepted the rule and then he became a great king. So Bharat Maharaj is very powerful king, and he had the marks of Sudarshana Chakra on his right palm, and he also has some marks of lotus on his soles of his feet. So he has some auspicious marks on his body, and he became a very powerful king. As a small child only he would control lion, and then when he grew up he performed 55 Ashwamedha Yajnas on the bank of Ganges, and he performed 78 Ashwamedha Yajnas on the bank of Yamuna, and he surpassed the opulence of even great demigods also. He used 33,000 horses in his sacrifices, and he also donated 14 lakh elephants to people who came there, and his opulence and his power were unsurpassable, and he defeated so many kings in this world, and even demons started hiding in the Rasatala because of the power of Bharat Maharaj. And then Bharat Maharaj, his queen, Bharat Maharaj performed so many sacrifices for his son. So at one point, Bharat Maharaj wanted a son and he performed a sacrifice, and he received Bharadwaja as his son. So this Bharadwaja had a background. Once Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, so this Brihaspati was attracted to his brother's wife named Mamata. So then he forcefully enjoyed with her, and then he impregnated her, and as a result one small child was born. But Mamata did not want to take care of this child, who was born in a very illicit manner or illegal manner. And Brihaspati also did not want to raise that child. So Brihaspati and Mamata both rejected that child. Then Maruts accepted that child and raised the child. And when Bharat Maharaj performed this sacrifice, the Maruts have given that child to Bharat Maharaj, and he became Bharadwaja. So then the descendants of Bharadwaja were also described in the later chapter. So in the 21st chapter we see the descendants of Bharat and Bharadwaja, and in that lineage there is another great king named Rantidev. This Rantidev was a very charitable king. So once he fasted for 48 days. After 48 days of fasting, he sat to eat some food along with his family members, and whatever food he has shared with his relatives, and then he started accepting his share. Then when he was about to eat, then a Brahmana came, and later this Rantidev has taken some portion of his food and gave as a donation, gave as charity to this Brahmana, and later a Shudra came. Again Rantidev has taken remaining portion, some more portion of his food, and then gave it to the Shudra, and another Chandala came. Again whatever food he had, Rantidev has given it as charity. Then he was about to drink little water, then another outcast person came, a Chandala came. First a dog eater came. So first Brahmana came, then Shudra came, then a dog eater came, then finally Chandala came. He wanted something, and then although Rantidev was on the verge of death because of not even accepting water, he has given that water also to this Chandala. And actually Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, these three deities of this universe, have come in the form of this Shudra, then Chandala, Brahmana, to test Rantidev and ultimately to glorify Rantidev. So Rantidev was glorified as the greatest charitable person, and Rantidev offered prayers to the Lord. So very beautiful shloka. He says, Nakavayeham gatimishwarat param ashtardhiyuktam apunarbhavam va artim prapadye khila deha bhajam antah sthito yena bhavantya adukhaha. He says, "Na kamaye ham gatim ishwarat param." Oh my dear Lord, I do not want liberation. I don't want even to enter the heavenly or Vaikuntha planet. And Ashtardhiyuktam, I don't want even Ashtasiddhis or great opulences. I don't want Apunar Bhavamba. I don't want liberation from this birth and death cycle. Artim prapadye akhila deha bhajam. He says that, my dear Lord, I am very much concerned about people who are suffering in this material world. I want to extend my selfless compassion towards all those people. So, great souls like Rantideva and many other personalities, they are very much concerned with the suffering souls in this material world, and they don't just want their own liberation or their own spiritual emancipation. That's the nature of great souls. Even Prahalad also prayed like that. Even Vidura also was asking so many questions on behalf of common people. So Prahalad says that Shoche tato vimukachetasa indriyartha maya sukhaya bharamudvahato vimodhan. Foolish people enjoy sense gratification and they degrade themselves because they wanted to enjoy senses. But I am very much concerned about them. And even Vidura also says that Janasya Krishnad vimukhasya daivat adharmashilasya sudukhitasya. So there are people who became adharmashila, very irreligious in their character. They became godless, they became atheistic. So to enlighten such people, great souls show some compassion on them and they travel for that purpose only. So this we can learn this compassionate nature from all these great souls. And further, the descendants of Rantideva are described. So in that lineage, we also find Jarasandha, one king. So Jarasandha was actually born in two halves, and one demoness named Jara has joined him. That's why he's called Jarasandha. And there is another story about the Shantanu and Pandavas. So Shantanu Maharaj was a very powerful king, and he has the ability to give benediction to other people to remain young also. So Shantanu Maharaj married one first wife named Ganga, and through Ganga he begot Bhishmadev, the powerful warrior and the grandsire of the Kuru dynasty. So this Shantanu Maharaj married Ganga, and then Bhishma was born to them, and Bhishma was the disciple of Parshuram. Bhishma is so glorious. And Shantanu again married another woman named Satyavati, and through Satyavati he begot some more sons like Vichitravirya and Chitrangada. Then Satyavati, before even her marriage with Shantanu, she gave birth to Vyasadeva through Parashara Muni. So Parashara Muni impregnated this Satyavati even before her marriage to Shantanu, and then through them Vyasadeva was born. Then somehow this Vichitravirya was married to this Amba and Ambika, Ambika and Ambalika. Then later somehow this Vichitravirya could not beget sons through them. Then Vyasadeva came and then begot sons through the wives of Vichitravirya, and they are Dhritarashtra and Pandu. And also Vyasadeva begot another son named Vidura through the maid servant of this Ambika and Ambalika. So thus Dhritarashtra, Pandu Maharaj and also Vidura were born. So these three were born, and Dhritarashtra married Gandhari, and he begot 100 sons through them. It's a very long story. So 100 sons were headed by this evil Duryodhan. And Pandu Maharaj had a curse, so he could not beget any children through his two wives Kunti and Madri. But Kunti had a benediction from Durvasa Muni that he could invoke the presence of any demigod and get some child, the benediction of a child through the demigod. So Kunti Maharani utilized that mantra and utilized that benediction, and then she received three sons. They are Yudhishthir, who was born with the blessings of Yamaraj, and also Bhima, who was born with the blessings of Vayudev, and Arjuna, who was born with the blessings of Indra. And Madri also begot sons through Ashwini Kumars. So like that, Pandu Maharaj had 5 sons, and eventually Pandu died. Then Kunti Maharani maintained these 5 sons, Pandavas. They are called the Pandavas, the popular 5 sons of Pandu Maharaj. So their descriptions are also given very briefly here, only names are given. And further dynasties are also described of other sons of Pururava, Anu, Dhuryo, Turvasu, Yadu, so other sons of Yayati. So they were being described. And finally, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, appears in this Yadu dynasty. And Krishna's glories and the glories of hearing about Krishna's pastimes are described by Sukadeva Goswami to set the appropriate mood for all of us to enter the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 10th canto, Sukadeva Goswami was about to describe all the pastimes of the Supreme Lord Krishna. In the 9th canto, Sukadeva Goswami has described the Sun dynasty and Moon dynasty and all the kings, many kings that appeared in these two dynasties in very brief. And only few stories are elaborated, that too slightly. And in most of the kings, he just gave the names and then left, because he was also very eager to describe Krishna's pastimes in detail. So the 9th canto is very fast. 9th canto has very small stories and several names of several kings only, and not many details. So now, to increase our appetite to enter the glorious 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes the Ashraya Tattva very prominently, that Ashraya is the Supreme Lord Krishna, who is the supreme shelter of everyone, and that Ashraya Tattva is the shelter of the other 9 topics of Bhagavatam also. So now, before entering the 10th canto, towards the end of 9th canto, Sukadeva Goswami speaks so many beautiful, enchanting shlokas to increase our appetite to hear Krishna's pastimes. So in the 23rd chapter, 19th shloka, he describes the glory of Yadu dynasty. He says, Varnayami mahapunyam sarva papaharam nrinam yadorvamsham naraha shrutva sarva papaihi pramuchyate. Varnayami mahapunyam. I am going to describe the extremely pious description of the Yadu dynasty. Sarva papaharam nrinam. When we hear the description of the Yadu dynasty, and especially the Supreme Lord Krishna's appearance and activities in that Yadu dynasty, then Sarva Papaharam, all our sinful activities are completely gone. Then Yador Vamsham Naraha Shrutva Sarva Papaihi Pramuchyate. One will be completely relieved from all sinful reactions and even sinful propensities also. Then in the 24th chapter, which is the last chapter of this canto, several other names of kings are also mentioned. Apart from that, the reasons for the Supreme Lord Krishna's appearance in the Yadu dynasty is described, and also Krishna's reciprocation with his devotees and his activities are also described in brief. So in the 61st shloka, Sukadeva Goswami says, Kalau janishya bananam dukkha shokatamo anudam anugrahaya bhaktanam supunyam yatanodyashaha. In this enchanting shloka, Sukadeva Goswami says, Kalau janishyamananam dukkha shoka tabonudam. The Supreme Lord Krishna descended in the Yadu dynasty on this earthly planet and performed so many enchanting pastimes so that the people of Kali Yuga would be benefited. Krishna appeared in Dwapar Yuga, actually towards the end of Dwapar Yuga, when Kali Yuga was about to begin. So then Krishna performed several enchanting pastimes at the end of Dwapar Yuga and created a lot of subject matter for all of us to discuss in Kali Yuga. So his Dwapar Yuga pastimes are a great subject matter of our discussion in Kali Yuga, and Krishna has planned for our purification. Kalau janishyamananam. So we are about to be born. The Kali Yuga people are about to be born. Kali Yuga is about to come. So to create a subject matter for them, Krishna appeared. Then dukkha shoka tamonudam. Dukkha is distress, shoka is lamentation, tama means ignorance. So tamonudam. So to subdue these three things, we have to discuss Krishna's pastimes. Anugrahaya bhaktanam. The Lord is very merciful towards his devotees in Kali Yuga. So he wanted to give them proper subject matter. So he came just before Kali Yuga. Supurnam yatanodyashaha. It's very pious and spiritually uplifting to hear Krishna's pastimes. The next shloka, 62nd shloka says, Yasmin satkarna piyushe yashastirthavare sakrit shrotanjalir upasprishya dhunute karma vasanam. Yasmin satkarna piyushe. Satkarna. So karna means ears. Satkarna means good ears. What are good ears? Those ears that are hearing the Supreme Lord Krishna's pastimes are the best ears. So we have seen in Mukundamala Stotra also, Jihve kirtaya keshavam muraripum cheto bhaja sridharam pani dvandva samarchaya chuta katha shrotradvayatvam shrunu Krishnam lokaya lochana dvaya harer gacchangri yugmalayam jighra ghrana mukunda pada tulasim murdhanna madhokshajam. We discussed this shloka, I think, in the context of Ambarish Maharaj. So this shloka describes how we have to engage all our senses in Krishna's service, how to dovetail the propensities of all our senses in the process of Bhakti Yoga. So in that, Shrotra Dvayatvam Shrunu, the two ears that we have in this human form of life must be engaged in hearing the Supreme Lord Krishna's pastimes. So that is the purpose of ears. So when our ears are engaged in Krishna's glories, in hearing Krishna's glories, they are called Satkarna. Yasmin Satkarna Piyushe, coming back to this shloka, Yasmin Satkarna Piyushe, Piyusha means nectar. So for those good ears that are inclined to hear Harikatha, Krishna's pastimes are like nectar, Satkarna Piyushe. Yashas Tirthavare Shakrut, the Supreme Lord's glories are so famous and they are like places of pilgrimage. So when we go to a place of pilgrimage, we take bath there, and by taking bath in a holy place, in a holy river, we will be relieved from sins. But if we take bath in the river of Krishna Katha, not only our sinful reactions are vanquished, our sinful propensities are also vanquished. That's why Dhunute Karma Vasanam, Shrotanjalir Upasprishya Dhunute Karma Vasanam. Our Karma Vasana means Vasana is the propensity to commit some sin. Karma Vasana, that they are completely washed away by hearing Krishna Katha sincerely. That is the glory of hearing Krishna Katha. The next shloka, very beautiful shloka. Snigdhasmitavalok Snigdhasmitekshitodarer Vakyair Vikramalilaya Drilokam Ramayam Asa Murtya Sarvanga Ramyaya. The Supreme Lord Krishna's pastimes are extremely pleasing to the entire human society. So Snigdha Smitekshitodare, Snigdha Smita. Smita means the Supreme Lord Krishna's smile. Ikshana means his glance. So the Supreme Lord's Krishna's smiles and glances are very benevolent, very compassionate. Snigdha, very affectionate. Snigdha, Smita, Ikshita, Udarair. Udara means very magnanimous. And Vakyair Vikramalilaya. Krishna's words are also extremely glorious. And Vikramalilaya, Krishna's unsurpassable pastimes, way in which he exhibits a lot of strength and power and majesty and grandeur. So they are the real subject matter for the entire human society. Drilokam Ramayam Asa. Drilokam means the human society. Ramaya means they cause a lot of enjoyment, lot of pleasure. The real pleasure for the human society is there in hearing Krishna Katha, in hearing about Krishna. Then Murtya Sarvanga Ramyaya, and Krishna's beautiful darshan, which is so pleasant and so enchanting and captivating and charming from top to bottom. So that is the glorious pastimes of Supreme Lord Krishna. Then Krishna's beauty is described in this another enchanting shloka, 65th shloka. The shloka says that Yasya nanam makara kundala charu karna bhrajat kapola subhagam suvilasahasam nityotsavam nata trupar drishibhi pribantyo naryo narascha mudita hakupita nimescha. So this shloka says, Yasyananam makara kundala charu karna. Krishna's beautiful face is decorated with makara kundala, alligator shaped earrings. Makara is like a type of fish that is there in water bodies. Makara kundala, Krishna's earrings are in the shape of a fish. Makarakundala Charukarna, Bhrajat Kapola Subhagam Suvilasa Hasam. And Krishna's whole face and the forehead and nose, they are so beautiful. Suvilasa Hasam. And Krishna is smiling in a very captivating manner. Then Nityotsavam. To be able to see this beautiful face of Krishna is Nitya Utsava. It is a great celebration, regular celebration. Every day we can celebrate Krishna's darshan. Nityotsavam na tatrupur. By all the we are seeing Krishna's beautiful face every day, regularly, there is no trupti, there is no satisfaction, there is no satiation. Means you may see Krishna for a long time on a regular basis, still the appetite to see Krishna, take Krishna's darshan is more and more. That will increase, that hunger will only increase. Na tatrupur. Drishibhihi pibantyo. Drishibhihi means eyes, pibanti means drink. We drink the nectar of Krishna's beauty through eyes. Eyes don't drink, ears drink. But beauty has to be drunk through eyes only. Then naryo narascha muditaha kupita nimescha. Nara nari. Men and women both are attracted to Krishna's beauty, and muditaha, they become so happy. Nimescha, kupita nimescha means they become angry with the creator of these eyelids. So the eyes are constantly blinking, and within one blink, a pure devotee of Krishna who has deep love for Krishna, he or she would feel separation from Krishna. So within one eye blink, a pure devotee can experience hundreds of yugas of separation from Krishna. They cannot tolerate separation from seeing Krishna even within one eye blink also. The best example is the gopis of Vrindavan. So, naryo narascha muditaha kupita nimescha. In this way, Sukadeva Goswami described the Supreme Lord Krishna and his pastimes and the result of hearing those pastimes and his beauty and his activities in a wonderful manner in all these shlokas. Then Sukadeva Goswami in just 2 shlokas summarized entire Krishna Leela. Sukadeva Goswami said the Supreme Lord Krishna was born in Kamsa's prison cell to Mother Devaki and Vasudev, and then Vasudev took Krishna and brought him to Gokul and kept him in Nanda Maharaj's house. In Nanda Maharaj's house, under the loving protection of Yashodamai, Krishna grew up, and Krishna performed so many enchanting pastimes in Vrindavan. He killed Putana, he killed Shakatasur, Bakasur, Vatsasur, Vyomasur, Arishtasur, Aghasur, and Brahma Mohan Leela, then Indra Govardhan Leela, he lifted Govardhan, he subdued Kaliya, he swallowed forest fire, and his brother killed Pralambasur and Dhenukasur. So like that, Krishna performed so many beautiful pastimes in Vrindavan, and he also performed Rasa Leela with the gopis. So he has so many Vatsalya pastimes and Madhurya pastimes and Sakhya pastimes. And eventually Krishna was brought by Akrura to Mathura, and in Mathura Krishna killed Kuvalaya Pida, and Krishna killed Krishna and Balaram together killed Chanura, Mushtika, Shala, Toshala, Kota, these 5 wrestlers, and finally Krishna killed Kamsa. And after killing Kamsa, Krishna enthroned Ugrasena. Krishna released the bondage of Devaki and Vasudev, who were imprisoned and tortured by Kamsa all these years. And then Krishna later fought with Jarasandha 17 times, and then Krishna erected Dwaraka fort, and he killed Kalayavana also through Muchukunda, and later he killed Jarasandha through Bhima. And after erecting Dwaraka fort, Krishna also married Rukmini Devi, then later Jambavati, then Satyabhama, then Mitravinda, Satya, then Kalindi, and he married not only these 8 principal queens, 8 principal wives, and he also killed Narakasura and accepted the 16,100 girls in Narakasura's captivity and accepted them as his wives. So he made 16,108 palaces, and he expanded himself into 16,108 farms and spent time with all his wives. And he also brought Parijata tree to this, from heavenly planets to this Dwaraka Dham, and he also killed so many other miscreants. Then he also attended the Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhishthir and received Agra Puja, and he also associated with Pandavas in various ways and enabled them also to kill miscreants. And later Krishna blessed Sudama, and Krishna has performed so many other pastimes with so many other devotees in Dwaraka, and he went to Ayodhya and he reciprocated with some devotees, and he was also trained by Sandipani Muni and revived his son. So like that Krishna performed so many enchanting pastimes in Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwaraka, Hastinapur, Kundinapur, Ayodhya, and he went to Sutala planet and met Bali Maharaj, and he also went to Samyamanipuri and then met Yamaraj, and he went to heavenly planet and met Indra, and he went to Mahavishnu Loka and then met Mahavishnu also. So like that Krishna performed so many brilliant pastimes, and finally Krishna disappeared from this world after that Maushara Leela and after giving his teachings to Uddhava. So Sukadeva Goswami summarized all the pastimes of Krishna within just 2 shlokas, and I little expanded more than that also. I gave a quick summary in just 2-3 minutes of the 10th canto and 11th canto, where Krishna's pastimes are vividly described. So Parikshit Maharaj was not happy with this. Sukadeva Goswami has summarized the pastimes of so many kings in 9th canto till now. Now Sukadeva Goswami is summarizing Krishna's pastimes also like that within 2 slokas only, and Parikshit was not at all happy with it. Actually Sukadeva Goswami wanted to elaborately describe Krishna's pastimes in great detail, but he wanted to test the eagerness of Parikshit Maharaj. So he summarized all Krishna's pastimes in 2 shlokas. Entire 10th canto is compacted into 2 shlokas. Then Parikshit Maharaj, in the beginning of the 10th canto Bhagavatam, he expresses his intense eagerness to hear Krishna Katha more and more. So then we will discuss in the 10th canto step by step, right from the beginning of Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's birth till Krishna's disappearance. Now there are 335 chapters in Srimad Bhagavatam. In that 10th canto is the biggest canto that has 90 chapters, and 11th canto has 31 chapters. So 121 chapters are exclusively describing Krishna's pastimes and teachings. So 10th canto 90 chapters are all dedicated to Krishna's pastimes, and 11th canto mainly, 31 chapters of 11th canto mainly deals with Krishna's disappearance, and 23 chapters of this 11th canto are Krishna's teachings to Uddhava. So that Krishna occupies the maximum portion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. 121 chapters are exclusively about Krishna, and in other cantos also we have Krishna coming here and there. In the first canto also Krishna comes, and in different places Krishna's mention is there. So Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's activities, and Krishna is glorified in the Srimad Bhagavatam very vividly. So Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He is the shelter of all other incarnations, and the 10th canto that describes Krishna, the 10th canto is the shelter of all other cantos, and all the cantos are studied ultimately to come to the point of relishing Krishna's pastimes. But we should not directly enter Krishna's pastimes in the 10th canto, especially Rasa Panchadhyaya and confidential pastimes of Krishna. We should systematically read Srimad Bhagavatam from 1st canto till 9th canto, and then enter the 10th canto, so that we understand Krishna's greatness nicely to relish Krishna's sweetness. In the 10th canto we have very beautiful pastimes of Krishna, where Krishna does a lot of mischief, and Yashoda Mata punishes Krishna, and all the gopis criticize Krishna and chastise Krishna sometimes, and even Madhurya gopis also chastise Krishna sometimes, and Krishna is playing with the sakhas, the gopas, and then sometimes he would wrestle with the gopas and he would be defeated by the gopas, and Yashoda Mata will sometimes bind Krishna with a rope. So in this way Krishna just adopts the nature of a normal human child and performs so many enchanting pastimes with his eternal associates. By reading these pastimes, we might consider Krishna to be ordinary. But if we read the first 9 cantos nicely, systematically, then we will understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the origin of all incarnations, and he has so many incarnations like Purusha Avataras, Guna Avataras, Leela Avataras, Manvantara Avataras, Shaktiavesh Avataras, Yuga Avataras, and he performs so many enchanting pastimes, and he is the creator of this world, maintainer of this world, destroyer of this world through many of his energies and incarnations, and he is the owner, proprietor, enjoyer, controller, master of everything. He is the supreme beneficiary of all our sacrifices. When this greatness of Krishna is understood by studying the first 9 cantos, in which Krishna's incarnations are described, and the whole process of Bhakti Yoga is also described, and the nature of pure devotees who are performing Bhakti Yoga is also described. So by having a proper understanding of this first 9 cantos, if we enter 10th canto, then we can appreciate 10th canto better. So all our logical inclinations are fulfilled in this initial cantos. So we have so much of philosophy in the form of the teachings of Lord Kapila, and we also have many other philosophical episodes and technical episodes in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, cosmology, and 3rd and 4th cantos present the Sarga and Visarga, the creation of this material world. 2nd canto presents Virat Rupa, the universal form. So after understanding a lot of philosophy and greatness of Krishna, then we can actually appreciate Krishna's sweetness in the 10th canto. So we have completed 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam in our Bhagavata Pravaha series in about 43 episodes. Now we will begin the 10th canto in the next episode. Then having completed these 9 cantos, we will be able to appreciate the 10th canto in a much better manner. So we will begin 10th canto in the next episode. So thank you all very much for your participation in this online course, Bhagavata Pravaha series. So thank you so much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.